Good morning, class. Today, we are going to talk about the vertical form of power sharing, and that is federalism. The learning outcomes, as you can see, are to enable you to critically think about how power sharing takes place in India. And secondly, by the end of this chapter, you will be able to enhance your creativity by reflecting the mechanism of power sharing between different levels of government. What then is federalism? Federalism, as I told you, is a vertical form of power sharing where it's a system of government in which the power is divided between a central authority and various constituent units of the country. So you can look at this picture. In this picture, you are shown that at one point in time, there was a Congress government in our country, and all the powers are in the central authorities over here. You can see the chef who has all the power, and all the different states, Kerala, Madras, Odisha, Bengal, Bihar, UP, Haryana, all these states together are waiting there for their share of power. So when the power is divided between one central unit and its states or constituent other smaller units, it is called federalism, the vertical form of power sharing. Now you can see that there is division of power between the central government and the constituent units of the country. Like in India, the constituent units are called the states, and the power is divided between the central government and all the states. Mind you, this map does not show you the new union territories of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh, so we don't deal with it as of now. Here we have two maps. One is showing us the democratic countries, and the other one is showing us federal democracies. So in these two maps, we can see both those kind of countries. And you can see that India, being a democratic country, is also a federal democracy. Are all democratic countries federation then? The answer is no. There are some countries that are unitary in nature. In these countries, there is only one government at the center that takes all the decisions. Then, what is the difference between a unitary democracy and a federation? Let's take a look at it. In a unitary government, there is only one level of government. Subunits are subordinated. The center can pass orders to the local government, and your example is United Kingdom. In a federal government, there are two or more levels of government. The government for the entire country, plus you have a government at all the different levels of provinces or states. Both the governments enjoy power independent of each other. The state government has its own powers and is not answerable to the center, and your example in this case is USA. So let us take a quick look at the federal and unitary government distinction points. Feel free to note them down in case if you haven't already written them. A federal government has two or more levels or tiers of government. The state government or the provincial government is not answerable to the central government. The central government cannot order the state government. The central government cannot exercise unlimited power and the state is independent. Example, USA. Unitary government has only one level of government and other levels are subordinate to the government. The state or the provincial government is answerable to the central government. The central government can order the state government and even withdraw its power. The central government can exercise unlimited power. The state is dependent on the central government. And the example in this case, what we have already seen is the UK. So the different levels in a federation. Usually a federation has two levels of government. The government for the entire country that is usually responsible for a few subjects of common national interest. And you have a government at the level of the provinces or the states that looks after much of the day-to-day administration of the states. Now let us look at the key features of federalism. 1. There are two or more levels or tiers of government. 2. Different tiers of the government govern the same citizens. Each has its own jurisdiction in the matters of legislation, taxation, and administration. So just as you can see, the citizen is the same. Look at the picture there on your screens. The citizens are the same. The central government looks into income tax, foreign policy. The state government looks into land revenue, law and order, and the local self-government looks into the property tax. So each has their own jurisdiction, legislation, taxation, administration. The third point, the jurisdiction of these levels are specified in the Constitution. The powers these governments have at different levels are constitutionally guaranteed. Number 4, the fundamental provisions of the Constitution cannot be changed unilaterally by either of the two, the central or the state government. It requires the approval of both the governments. At number 5, the courts have the power to interpret the Constitution. In case of disputes between the different levels of government, the courts act as the umpire. Normally it is your apex court or the Supreme Court. At number 6, the sources of revenue for each level of government are clearly specified to ensure financial autonomy. The federal structure has dual objectives. A, to safeguard and promote the unity of the country, and B, to accommodate regional diversity. I'm sure you've written down these in your notebook a little earlier, and so it's easy for you to just check out on any missing points. Now, an ideal federalism has two very crucial aspects. 1, the governments at different levels should agree to some common rules of power sharing or their basic rules of power sharing. And 2, there should be a mutual trust and an agreement to live together. How many types of federations do we have? The answer is 2 types, coming together and holding together. The type of federation formed is mostly determined by the historical context in which they are formed. So what then is the difference between coming together federation and holding together federation? Both are two routes through which federations have been formed. Coming together federations, we're going to deal with them first. They are independent states coming together on their own to form bigger units. increase security by pooling sovereignty and retaining identity. All constituent states have equal power, and you have 3 examples in your book here: USA, Switzerland, and Australia. In holding together federations, large countries decide to divide the power between constitutional units and the center. The center is more powerful against the states. The constituent units of federation have unequal powers, and your examples given in the book are 3: India, Spain, and Belgium. Mind you, I have given it to you as a tabular distinction. If you haven't yet gone through it, you haven't yet written it down, please make a note of it. I keep this slide here for a few more seconds. Please jot down anything that you haven't yet jotted down. Now I'd like you to give a heading in your notebook. It's called the experiential learning activity. I have given you 5 statements on your screen. All that you have to do is read number 4 there. How will I proceed? The student will identify each feature under the heading as federal or non-federal government. So I have either given you statements or features of federal and non-federal governments, and there is a observation table or a tabular form that you have to fit these statements in. The first thing we are going to do is we are going to copy the statements. Statement number 1, I am calling them out. Please write them down. Statement number 1, there should be 2 or 3 levels of government. I repeat, there should be 2 or 3 levels of government. Number 2, powers should be divided between the center and the states. Powers should be divided between the center and the states. 3, the financial powers should vest with the central government. The financial powers should vest with the central government. Number 4, the central government is entitled to take away the powers of the states. The central government is entitled to take away the powers of the states. Number 5, the governments at 2 levels, have their separate jurisdiction, in the field of lawmaking. Now these were your 5 statements. You have to identify each feature and write it under the heading as federal or non-federal government. So I'm giving you the tabulation or your observation. So this is the observation table that we are going to fill based on those 5 statements. You will fit them either as federal or non-federal statements. So for example, if a statement number 1 is a federal statement, you would fit it below at number 1 in the federal column. In case if it was non-federal, you would put it in the non-federal column. Keep the statement number as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 only and decide which column you're going to fit it in. This is your observation table and I would expect it to be completed in your notebooks only. The next thing is, what has made India a federal country? Now, overnight India did not become federal. So what has made India federal? If you remember, after independence, India was separated into India and Pakistan. And India was partitioned. And it was a very, very painful and traumatic partition where people had to leave their homes, families, and many even lost their lives and livelihoods and were completely uprooted from their motherland and moved to the other nation. But when India became an independent country, the constitution declared India as a union of states. Thus, we have the three-tier federalism or the three-tier federal system in India. One is the union government, two is the state government, and three is your local self-government and your panchayati raj. The threefold distribution of legislative powers under the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list. So I'm going to show you a little bit ahead what comprises of each of these lists. At number 4, all states in the Indian Union do not have identical powers. So union territories have different powers from the states, and that we all know. Then there are changes in power sharing, which have to be passed by 2/3 majority in the parliament. Nobody can overnight turn around and say that they want to change the level of power sharing or make amendments to it. As I told you earlier, there has to be mutual trust and agreement, and it cannot be done unilaterally. It has to now be passed officially by 2/3 majority in the parliament. In case of any dispute regarding the division of power, the apex court or your Supreme Court will take the decision, will act as an umpire. As I had mentioned in the previous slide, you have your 3 lists in front of you. The union list has subjects of national importance. In this, only the union government can make laws. And the subjects that the union government looks into are like defense, banking, currency, foreign affairs, communication, etc. The state list has subjects of local and state importance. The state government alone can make laws in this case. And the subjects comprise of the police, trade, commerce, agriculture, irrigation, etc. The concurrent list has subjects of common interest both to the center and the state. In this case, the laws can be framed by both the center and the state. And the subjects here include education, forest, trade union, marriage, adoption, succession, etc. Now there are some subjects that do not fall either in the union, state and concurrent list, but are still important. Where will they go? These subjects are called the residuary subjects. And the union government alone has the power to make laws on them. For example, you have ICT, computer software, etc. A little earlier, I was telling you all states in the Indian Union do not have identical powers. And I told you union territories in particular have different powers from the states, but some states have always enjoyed a special status. And our very crown, Jammu and Kashmir, has had its own constitution. The state assembly needs to give its approval. The Indians who are not permanent residents of Jammu and Kashmir could not buy land or house or property in that state. Apparently now there has been a change in status in the state of Jammu Kashmir, and now they've also made them into union territories. So the information that I have provided to you on your screen is basically about the old state of Jammu Kashmir, the crown of India. Now what you have to do for your homework is find out the current status of Jammu Kashmir from the old state. So from the old state, what was the next step taken? That is your first point. And 2, you will then show how they split into the union territories and which union territory comprises of which part of Jammu and Kashmir. Plus the article, that is the much debated article. There is a video here which I would like you to watch. I have given you the link to the video on your screens. However, I will attach this link in the description box of the video that I am sending to you. Please click on the link and do watch the video. It is a recap of all that you have studied till now. Until we meet again, thank you. Make sure you have done your homework and are ready.